So, welcome. Welcome to the last session in the summer deep dive. Yay! Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, I revisited the invitation that had come forward at the beginning of this class, just to kind of reorient and root into what the original intent, you might call it that, had been, and see where we're at. I want to acknowledge that, this particular series, I think was, it was a big ask. It was a big ask from me, honestly, because, I don't know how interesting or relevant life beyond personhood is for everyone. And yet it seemed really vital to begin to talk about that. And the phases of emptiness deepening and just the view beyond conditioned mind and conditioned heart, and what would appear as miracles that begin to occur in that condition and view. But with that, I want to acknowledge that, there are so many phases to the mystery unfolding. I mean, that's inherent to the word mystery, right? It's going to be mysterious and individual and unique, and it's the unfolding of that can be experienced in many, many ways, divinely so. So I understand if they're, okay, say we got a view, a glimpse, a moment of that love that we are, and then kind of all hell breaks loose in our life after that. I'm not acknowledging that we haven't covered it very specifically in this particular series, because that wasn't really the intent here, but I've covered it for 13 years on many, many, many other occasions. And there is, endless amounts of information about that on the website, in the retreat videos, especially the other study courses that went into it in detail. I can remember a particular deep dive on the dark nights of the personality, the self, the soul, the breakdown of the dark nights. And what I will say is that this is the beauty of, and this is not like a rally cry for like, oh, come and see me, I'm your teacher. It's not like that. But I will say, I am a very available teacher. And the one-on-ones, if there is a specific, unique, individual phase of the mystery unfolding that you feel is not being addressed or paid attention to, or that kind of thing, here I am. And all of the sessions are by donation, so there's really no barrier. I generally try to talk to somebody within 1 or 2 days, because I feel like you kind of have to strike while the iron is hot. If I schedule too far out, when I meet with a person, they're like, I don't have any idea why we're talking. Spirit has taken care of it, which is beautiful too. I mean, that's a big lesson for all of us right there. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, as Sharon always says. I intimately, any of you who have known me, I've been very candid about it. I intimately understand the rock and roll show, spin cycle, dissolution of the personal self, and its phases of courage. Courage. It takes a lot of courage. It takes, as the Buddha said, Buddha Dharma Sangha, Mother, Father, Son, Daughter, Holy Spirit. But it also, the personal courage, Dr. Hawkins emphasized it endlessly. This was one of his main Dharma pointers was the level of courage sort of has to be embodied for one to go any further as you transcend the levels of consciousness. And I understand it. Been there, done that. I'm not very specifically going through that in this course, although it's written into really, I would think, anything that comes forward here because it was just so part of how it all happened here in a very dramatic way. Not that that's necessary, and I hope that doesn't have to be for you, but no, I just wanted to say that. Because a bunch of the, if you want to call it information, or I don't know, information's not quite the right word, let's just say Dharma, that's coming forward for this series is kind of like the leading edge of what's happening here in this mystery unfolding. And I felt a push from Spirit to begin to present it in a more direct way. I've always been saying it since the very beginning, the first retreat, be as is, and all the stuff that I've always been saying, but I'm really focusing on it in this series. So if none of it is resonating or landing, or it's just, put it in the pantry. I would go to Aja or Dr. Hawkins, and many things that I didn't really grab onto in the moment came forward later as like, oh, okay, right. I used to say, Sharon's mentorship for me was like her leaving little breadcrumbs along the path, like through the dark forest. The dark forest, the great mystery, So with that, I also want to just emphasize and reiterate that the teaching here is very simple. And I've said it many times, it's too simple for the mind. It's too simple for a conditioned mind. It's too simple for a conditioned heart. It's too simple. It's not a schemata. It's not a program. It's be still and know, with a capital K, that I am God. Be still. Abandon preconceptions, self-referencing. Jump off the cliff into the present moment as it is and listen. And that applies to whatever phase of the mystery is unfolding. It may not seem like a life rope at the time, and you're going, I need more. I need a way. That's the way. The way is the way. And as one begins to abandon personhood itself, that way, the present moment is all you've got. Not in a cliche bumper sticker, read it in a book, The Power of Now. Not that that book isn't revelatory and transformational. I just am talking about the cliche that set of words has become. The power of now, and we throw it around as like it's all good. I'm speaking about there's no other place to be. As Ajah says, the over there has become here, the only here, and there is no other place. There's no other. So your guide, compass, duty, responsibility, I don't know how to say it, is that. It's the only rule left. Here and now. Show up. Tune in. Anchor. Like anchor. Down back in whatever pointer. And there are many on the website. If you visit the morning meditation pages, there are many, many, many pointers to this. If you need meditation pointers, which I get and understand, and that's why they're there on the website. Anchor into the deepest knowing of your deepest sense of self in the current moment and relax. As that, rest the doer, if possible, and inform from and as that. Freshly, fresh. Well, those words make it sound real easy, like, okay. But it's a practice. It's a practice for all of us. So, yes, self-referencing as what we would call the ego, that narrating, referencing someone who is alive, it drops out. It's as in it's not there. It's not there. And the intellect cannot understand that. The ego cannot understand that. We can never get to it through concepts. It will always sound like an idea, and we'll think we've hit upon it here and there, and we do get glimpses, we get foreshadowing. We do. We absolutely do. We go to sleep at night. Where is the me then? But it's something that dawns, and you don't miss it, you don't wonder, because it's so radical of a shift in view. Anyway, the center is empty. Now, people looking and watching and talking to you and relating to you are not going, wow, the center is empty. She's completely different. This is the thing that the intellect can't get. Well, that person should look like a holy person, or that person should look like, should have no opinions, or that person should, well, of course the intellect's going to do that because it's trying to find the right area to put the no self. Oh, it's a crack up. It's innocent. It's totally innocent, but it's not going to land on it. Not it, you know. So there can be this notion, and it's a limiting one. It's limiting. That there is a someone who is alive. And in the states of higher self, like we talked about in session 3, the states of in a higher expression of selfhood are glorious. And I'm going to sit up here and tell you, abandon them. And it might not be that easy. It wasn't here. I could feel the ecstasy draining out, and it looked like a flat line out ahead, like ashes and bone. The levels of and deepening of emptiness. So we have this notion that someone is alive. But there is only life. Not someone who is alive. Life. One thing happening here. Life. So we say, awakening is a frequency or a vibration. I'm talking about the heart of frequency, the heart of vibration, the heart of expression, the heart of being is unconditioned, uncaused, love, life, whatever you want to call it. That's it. There is nothing else. There's no personhood to lean on, grab onto, hide out in, and as. It feels that way, and I'm not denying that. I'm just not denying that. It would be foolish of me to deny that. It would feel insincere because we all walk around, just dividing so we can talk about things. That's a this is a that, and that's great. But when we believe that fundamentally, we believe it. And in the case of personhood, we inhabit it. We inhabit it like a, I just don't know how to explain it. Any way that I say it doesn't quite catch it, but we adhere to it like we would a set of a dogma or a set of rules or a set of guidelines or a set of what has to happen. Personhood has to happen, or the experiencer must be present for experience. Does that make any sense? Only the experiencer would ever believe that. It's simply a convention that has been inhabited for whom, that would mean going into philosophy. When it arrived on the planet, how it got here, its purpose. I don't know about any of that. I just don't know. And I don't really care. Pointing to the heart of being, the heart of existence, the heart of all these categories. Having a very, I love the word vibration, light, you know, and they're great ways to, and more expanded ways than just, you know, a consolidated me thinking about other me's and objects in space. Aliveness is a better word here than those words. It's a little more refined because vibration is alive, frequency is alive, love is alive, feeling, you know, it's aliveness itself. We can sense into it. I mean, you know, here it was kind of like grabbing on to a voltage that the system had no way of processing. But it doesn't have to be that way because we can come into it now with understanding, even if it's intellectual and conceptual, that's a good start. Or we can search our physicality. I mean, there's many, many, many guided meditations on the website about the aliveness of being and pointers to that in the body and where to go with that. It's the heart of even presence. You know, we think of presence as maybe kind of essential, fundamental, and it's closer, but it's the heart of presence. The animating power, the creator, whatever we want to, whatever word is going to work, the great mystery, the, all apparent things in perception are the wholeness of unconditioned love unfolding from, through, as the mysterious potential that is. The way we see this is totally dependent on the level of consciousness that that power is shining through, whatever filter we've got on it. So, you know, people will say, well, where is God in the war zones? Where's God when children are starving? Where's this unconditional love when, you know, these terrible things are appearing? Well, most certainly, whatever power is animating, you know, call it what you will, is pervading time and space. But that doesn't mean that there's consciousness there to see it. That doesn't mean that there's consciousness there to see it. Just like electricity. Electricity was not absent from the fabric of reality before it was discovered. There just was no consciousness about electricity. So it didn't exist. So the appearance is the level of consciousness, and the wish-fulfilling jewel, as the Buddhists say, the wish-fulfilling jewel, which has no judgments, no rewards and punishments, it's shining. It's fulfilling the moment, giving, giving, giving. Here I am, here I am, here I am. Not, it's always is then formed through conditions. It's reflected through the mind heart, a conditioned mind heart, as war and peace. Da-da-da and da-da-da. This and that. Me and all the rest of the universe. Oh, crazy. And yet we bought into it, did we not? And that's the view. And there's no redeeming God up there saying, no, you can't have that. You can't have this. You can have that. You can't have this. You will have that. You won't have that. No. It is as it is. But whether there is consciousness to avail of that, well, we're learning. We're learning. But personhood is limited. It's not empty enough. It's too identified. It's not the tool. I have a runny nose. This from change in weather. I'm not sick. It's not the tool. It's not bad. It's innocently noble and all kinds of things, right? It's just not fundamentally real. It's not fundamentally real. There are no, all apparent things in perception are an appearance. And when one is emptied, somehow, Ajahn says it's through an act of grace. I just don't know. I really can't say. If one is emptied of self-identification, self-referencing, and all the conditions that go with that, the view well, it's just inexpressible. It's just totally inexpressible. And the closest I can come is uncaused love. That's just as close as I can personally am able to language it. Everywhere, all the time. And it's mostly never seen because the conditions feel safer. The limitations feel safer. Even though they might be uncomfortable at a soul level, they feel familiar. So going to the very darkest place in the forest and entering there is not really, that takes a brave heart. If one is still identified as a person, which most of us are when we're still seeking, The abyss of not knowing who one is, what one is, how one is just a very, it doesn't sound palatable to a conditioned self. And yet, here we all are listening to this particular talk, and there's literally no reason that we would ever even consider listening to something like this unless it was on the horizon. That's my felt sense. I don't know what the horizon is. I'm not, I read an email this morning from some listserv that I'm on that it was like 2040. That's when it's going to turn, I just don't know. I really don't have, I can't say. I still have opinions, but I mostly can't believe any of them. And that is the condition I'm in, regardless of whether I want to be. That's the condition. simple. And every path that exists, and all the masters point to stillness, quietness, in a relative way, because that is an avenue, a path, a catalyst for realization of stillness that is, silence that is. So it may not feel like a path, or that it's delineated in a way that it's just too simple, or whatever, but be still and know. I mean, this is the great good news, if coming from this expression, that you don't have to go anywhere. It is closer than close. Closer than close. It's more intimate than intimate, because intimacy implies this merging, this coming together. There's no coming together. It is. It's closer than the word close. It's closer than the word intimate. It's nature, natural, inherent, fundamental, essential. All the words we hear. Even if we can't in that moment, we've used the metaphor of an old-fashioned radio that you used to have to tune in the dial, get it just right, just right. We're tuning it, fine-tuning it. So small-mindedness, I don't mean that in a derogatory way, limited mindedness, limited heartedness has a range of stations that it can see and hear. Right? It can't see and hear out of that range. It can't. It's not that it's stubborn, it's not that it's evil, it's not that it's being punished dramatically for 100,000 other lifetimes, or, no. It is a view, and that's the view. And that's the choices and options, those levels of consciousness. We're just tuning that to that which is native, inherent. And empty of self-referencing. We still get all the, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and maybe it won't, I'm always hopeful it won't be as for some people, maybe it'll just be very slow and sure, or beautiful permeation, like ink on a white cloth, for some people. But there are some phases where, self drops away and it feels like bada bing, bada boom, did it, got it, And it's super subtle that there's still this high self experiencing no self. Super subtle. Super subtle. And it's beautiful. It's a foreshadowing. There's no doubt. But it is still a experience. When the loss of the ability, there's just literally, there's no ability to self-reference. I remember being in retreat with Ajahn one time, And he was talking about the loss of your inner world. There is no inner world. And he was like, people talk about this inner world, and I feel this inside and that inside, and I'm like this, he said. And I didn't understand it until I do. Until now it is. Not a self-referencing capacity. Empty of that. And it's very surprising because then that emptiness, which is total, actually deepens. It deepens. There are even phases within that of the mystery unfolding. And that's for maybe the sequel to this course. So to remember, and I don't know if it will be comforting, I'm hoping, that when I've said it before, and I don't know, it might appeal to somebody and might not make any sense to somebody else, but this is how it downloads. I see like the selfhood putting in a bigger battery in its flashlight. As it transcends the levels of consciousness, it's getting brighter and brighter at the center. And it's illuminating dark corners of the psyche that it has never seen before and was hoping would never, ever, ever, ever have to come out of the closet. That's the process. That's it. That's it. Oh, yeah, and that. Oh, yeah, and that. Deep, deep roots of identification that don't even feel personal at a certain point, that are just humanity's collective idea come to light. Not out there as someone else, which is much easier, right? Oh, they are at war. I'm not at war. I'm a peaceful meditator. There's no war here. It's out there in them. Then that gets lit up. All of the places, the mind and the heart and the personhood go to war to maintain status quo, to maintain a feeling of safety. It's very innocent. It's very understandable. Please, let's all keep it in mind and in heart, the gentleness that is required, the understanding from a gentle, almost parental point of view of like, I understand why you need to maintain that view, sweetheart, but how's it working for you? Because these corners of the collective, woo, boy, that starts getting right down to it. And like I said, I'm not putting out you must come see me when, things get tough. I'm really not. I just trust and have faith in everyone's journey. I mean, deeply. I could never sit here in this chair if that wasn't true. But I sure needed somebody to speak to when those dark, deeply held ideas of self were being illuminated. Things that the small self did not want to claim. I'm a better person than that. I'm a more spiritual person than that. I don't like hurting people. I mean, a lot of stuff comes up. And there's a back door for that ego process. The whole ego process just vacillates between superiority and inferiority, superiority, inferiority, superiority, inferiority. We all know that ride. It's a blessing of God when it drops out. I mean, that's one of the baselines, that's one of the foundational aspects. Oh, now I've had a glimpse of no self. I'm in the A plus group. Oh no, I've had the, I mean, it just goes on and on. It's just never ending. That's how it feeds itself and keeps itself like apparently alive. Even loss of selfhood, emptiness, falling through space without a parachute as a way of life becomes very ordinary. Super, super, super ordinary. It has no contrast anymore to a selfhood, so it doesn't feel like anything. And actually, most things don't feel like anything anymore. The whole affective nervous system, and that's another thing that I think I probably will do a deep dive on. The affective nervous system, our feeling self, we've all been so, here's a deep corner, here's a deep illumination with the flashlight. Feel your feelings, sweetheart. They're yours. I mean, that might be healthy and okay at a certain point. I don't know. It's not what I'm talking about. There's no indulgence in ownership. There's nothing like that to hide out in. Too fleeting. And our feelings are the whole emotional affective system that's been wired up to belief and personhood, and the whole thing is not trustworthy. And I don't know about you. This is big for me to say. I've probably never said it before. It goes in the face of a lot of things. I mean, like, Ajit sometimes will say, I think I'm, moving into heresy here. I'm just saying, I think I might be moving into heresy here. Because, the bottom line is, if it's identified as a thing in life with another thing having it, I'm having this feeling. This is my thing. This thing has this thing. It's not what I'm talking about. It may be useful in a moment. I'm sure it is. It may be useful to a certain level of consciousness. I'm sure it is. I'm not against any of it. I'm not against anything. I'm just really trying to talk about what I set out to talk about at the beginning of summer. I don't know what I'm doing. It's just not what I'm speaking of. I'm speaking of a loss of that perception, and you can't get it back if you wanted to. It's not there. And then, oh boy, then our egos will come in. Our egos will come in and like start to be scared to use certain languaging, like I have, or I remember Eckhart Tolle telling this story about how somebody at a conference, my nose is just running. Somebody at a conference came up to him back when you could still probably meet Eckhart Tolle, and Eckhart said, well, hello, I'm Eckhart Tolle. And the guy was like, I'm vast space, man. You see what I'm saying? There is nothing inside of Eckhart Tolle that is like against any or referencing which language I should use, or, there is a phase, there is a juncture where language really starts breaking down and you will notice it and it will sound hilarious and ridiculous, the language that we use. It will be comical. It will be comical because it has no bearing on the actuality. But that's a phase. And then, life moves as life, as it will in a moment. As it will in a moment. Hi, I'm Eckhart Tolle. Hi, I'm vast space. I'm having, it's just the perfect story to illustrate what I'm talking about. And there's nothing, I'm not making fun of anybody or the ego itself or pushing against anything. I'm really not. I'm just trying to use as many examples and come at it from different ways in order to just maybe strike a match. That's really all I'm doing. I'm not trying to convince anybody. Quite a few of us, were at Aja. This is, according to him, final personal event. Who knows? We'll see. This past weekend. And one of the most endearing things for me, I don't know if endearing is the right word, potent, was he said, and he made a point of saying, and he kind of went in depth into it, that he speaks from direct experience. And that is the gift of this lineage. That's what this lineage is. That's what this lineage is. It's about direct experience. It doesn't have to match anybody's. It isn't trying to convince anybody with a set of dogma or ideas or anything else. I remember Aja saying one time, he had to ditch the robes of Zen. Not that he was against Zen. He quotes it, and it's obvious in his body, in what he says, the gift of it, the gift of Zen. But in the end, it was too limited. And even his teacher recognized that. Everybody can just forget everything I've said. Because it's totally rudderless anyway. But we'll give it a little bit more here. I've used this metaphor quite a bit, and I don't know, it might land, it might not. It just still is. Sometimes I, kind of lay there and listen, just get real quiet and listen, are there other ways but some of these metaphors that I've been using for years are just the ones that work for me here. So it really is as if, the sun is always shining, but we're sitting in a room with the curtains closed claiming that it isn't. It's really like that. Because no, it's dark in here. Look, I have the proof. I have the appearance of darkness. I have the appearance of war. I have the appearance of famine. I have the appearance of whatever it is. So the sun is not shining. God is not all pervasive. Love is not happening. It's dark. And we're solidly of that belief. Because, so we start to open the curtains and get these little glimpses. It's like, ooh, I don't know, man. It's really bright out there. And if I let that light in, it changes everything. That's really the one that really gets us. It changes everything. Everything's lit up. Even like material reality can feel so overwhelmingly raw with an unmediated, immediate perception, like every atom is visible. I mean, here it was like crystal diamond world for, I don't know, 6-7 months. I couldn't drive. I took my daughter for a hamburger and drove the car into the drive-in. I mean, my poor kids, they had to basically go through this with me. But like Ty said this morning, it's awkward, but you got to let it flow. Yes, that is our bumper sticker. It's awkward, but you got to let it flow. it can feel, even though it's what we've always wanted, like Sharon says, it can be like, what the heck? It's like all the layers of numbness and mediation and the way we look at things to make it so we can handle it and everything fall away. And I know you've had a moment like this, Jim. I'm sorry to call you out, but I see the recognition in your eyes right now. And it just falls, it's like, whoa, startling in some ways. So the sun is shining. Let's just stick with this metaphor for a minute. But the levels of consciousness, the levels of belief, the levels of conditionedness, which are way beyond just our personal, we can shift out of the me into oneness, unity, and relatively easy, like easier, where it's like, oh, okay, I get I'm part of a greater whole. And it can feel really good, all my relations and all that stuff. And that's an amazing shift, because an ego that has that ability and that capacity to see that view behaves quite differently than one that doesn't. So that shift is awesome. But it's a whole nother shift to just abandon ourself for unmediated, immediate mystery. This, that, whatever is. But where I'm trying to go with this is the potential of that shift. And this is what I mean by this is the leading edge of the unfolding here. No selfhood referencing as a person in the center of everything fell out, probably, I lose track of time, but maybe 15, 17 years ago, I started getting, I don't know. And the phases of emptiness have, continued to unfold. And now the leading edge here is the potential, the power. I started coming into the word power a couple, 3 maybe years ago, like a naturally arising in the stillness power. And Dr. Hawkins wrote a book, a very famous book called Power versus Force. And I'm very well familiar with that book. I've read it, I don't know, 100 times. So it was kind of like, but power is a word that we sometimes steer clear of because of the misuse through dogma and religions and organizations, and that I'm the raw power of the sun shining, just shiningness that is. Curtains wide open, no limitations, meaning no conditionedness here to here to here. Well, it matters how we see it, right? The beliefs shape the appearance, shape reality, shape the reflection. If the curtains are sheer red curtains, the sun is shining, it's shining. God is, love is, creator is, whatever you want to say. But it's formed through a conditioned mind, body, heart into this, that, the other. Something's definitely more useful and less violent than others. But nevertheless, it's formed through a reflective mind, through consciousness, human beingness, not human personhood, human beingness, like red rose beingness, blue sky beingness, pine tree beingness, Mowgli beingness. Mowgli's a dog in the room. Just making that available for the recording. It matters how we see it. Even quantum physics, at the level of consciousness that is quantum, pretty much all the great quantum physicists of our time who have been on the cutting edge, leading edge, have declared the mystery as the potential of God. And it matters, meaning as the atoms form in the vacuum of the void, as form comes into being, it matters how we see it. Matter is as we see it. And this is the redemption, the beauty of original love. And it's when it shines without limitation, without curtains, without condition. It is as it is, not as we would have it be. It is as it is, naturally, like water being wet. This, and we all go through all kinds of things, and I'm not laying at some sort of new age guilt trip, like, well, we shouldn't have any kind of health problem, because, all the stuff that a mind that still needs to know why. The mind that still entertains a question of why it just has to know. It has to place cause and effect. That was the whole book, Power versus Force. You must transcend cause and effect. As you transcend the levels of consciousness, cause and effect goes, boom. Makes no sense at all. You start thinking, well, how far back do I got to go? The Big Bang? And then you realize the Big Bang is this moment and nothing but this moment. Always, ever, now. You hear what I'm saying? You can't go anywhere to look for cause and effect, but right here. So, and I'm not talking about an ego all of a sudden kind of getting a glimpse of this and going, oh, I'm God. I'm the creator. The sun shines indiscriminately. This is the key. An ego claiming it is God does not. An ego claiming that it's God thinks it knows what the world needs now. The sun just shines. Nothing left but shining. Without a why, without a cause, without an effect, without a reason, without meaning, without an interior world to fuel it. The original love in its purity, arising from and as and through infinite the truth of that word, potential. Infinite potential has no why. It can't afford, it's not possible, and so it's kind of crazy to even like uh, entertain it, but it would be like water sort of moping around going, why do I have to be so wet? I mean, if there were self-consciousness to God, to the creator, it's like, it's not a thing. It is as it is. Consciousness is inherent to human beingness. And the reason, that's a funny word to say, but one way we resonate deeply with what we call nature, that we think is outside of ourselves, behaving in a different way than ourselves. Well, it is behaving in a different way than ourselves because human beingness has taken on self-consciousness. And a tree hasn't. But there's no difference. There's no difference. There's no difference in the nature. Life is life. All things are life. All apparent things. So we look out there and we go, oh, I'm going to go for a walk in the forest. We may as well say I'm going to go for a walk in unself-consciousness. That's no self. So it's a hard sell, but maybe if the intellect can grasp it that way. Unself-conscious. So like the trees, the red rose, don't have to sit and contemplate over a lifetime. I'm not laughing at any of you, I'm laughing at me. Contemplate over a lifetime, how must I be authentic? How can I be authentic? What's the authenticity here? It's preposterous. We've all bought into it. If I lose myself, well, by God, that's my story. And, I worked hard for that story. And it defines me, and it's my thing. And I rose up, and I did, and yes. But that's like the rose deciding, I bloomed, baby, like I did it. Me. Now where's my yummy reward? And how much better am I? Or how much worse? There's a view, a way beyond all that, and it unfolds quite naturally of its own accord, mysteriously. And there's very little to say about it, and yet we're trying, because that's one beauty of human beingness, is a languaging capacity in this way. I mean, all the other expressions of life are communicating their way as well. But simple, 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 simplicity, naked, unadorned, unmediated, unconditioned, no distinctions, no qualifications, is as it is. So if we do, and we will, and we are, because none of us are walking on water yet, as of yet that I know of, have difficulties, challenges, health, the rewiring project of, trying, assimilating, integrating, reformatting in order to be as what we are divinely born to be, the whole thing. It doesn't negate an understanding at whatever unfolding one is at, whatever level of understanding one is at. It's the cosmic corkscrew, the levels of consciousness, the same dawning can happen, and then a few years later, whoo, same dawning, but whoa, okay, I get that on a majorly deeper level. It's okay. Whatever sense of this we have at this point can be brought to bear upon the difficulties, the challenges, and we can begin to relate to them and realize them in a different way, like, this is an appearance, and I know it's an appearance, but it's a strong appearance. God, give me eyes to see. God, give me ears to hear. What's next? Be quiet. Be still. Listen attentively. And you can know that it's an appearance and not fundamental, essential reality, and still work with it, or whatever words you want to say. At the same time, they don't cancel each other out. Only the mind thinks that they cancel each other out. I remember Sharon one time, I was having this dramatic blowout of my cranial nerves on the left side of my head, and trigeminal nerve neuralgia, and just pain that was unnavigable, and really, I was thinking, nope, not going to live through that. That's too far. Too far. I can't do it. Just too much. Just too much. But at the same time, I had many conditions around what I would do and what I wouldn't do around it. And I'm not a pain med person, and blah, 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 whatever. It's innocent. God bless Jennifer and her nursing history and all that stuff. And Sharon said to me, hey, you know that God comes in a Tylenol too, right? Changed everything. It was like, oh my God, that became such an incredible contemplation over the next few years. Such an incredible contemplation. Only the conditioned self has a problem with, not a problem, let's put it this way, has a division between absolute and relative reality. And as you continue down the road, that division, just like all the other gaps, close. It just closes. And the moment is as the moment is, and you don't know why, and you don't know who, and you don't know what, but there is I'm going to say it, responsive immediacy that informs. And that responsive immediacy is life itself. Life. The heart of being. So there's no right or wrong. There's no failing. All of that has to go. All of it can go, because how do we know if it was useful or not useful, or moved in the direction, let's see, if the light was actually unimpeded, If the mind is an avenue of awareness, clear awareness rather than a former of belief, well, the next moment gives us the answer to any inquiry like that that we would possibly need. We don't have to run it through the personhood of should have, would have, could have. Don't need it. Doesn't matter. I think that was why it was so useful for Ajah to always have that question, in the middle of inquiry, where he'd be like, how is it working for you? Very simple question. Doesn't sound like the enlightened Adyashantis, How is it working for you? And the freedom, this is the key of liberation. There's freedom in the next moment as the next moment. It's not bound by the historical referencing. It's not bound. It's not bound by it. You can be a vegetarian one day and I'm drinking blood the next. Whose image does it threaten? Nobody's, because there's nobody there. Which can seem really weird at first. Very weird. But what am I exactly? And who am I? And don't I stand for something? And liberation is wild in the sense of untamed, unfettered, undomesticated, unself-conscious. And in that sense, when you're around somebody like that because they just are who they are. I mean, and you kind of groove on it, don't you? I mean, when you're around somebody like that, it's like, oh man. Even if they don't fit with your preferences and all of that remain. Your preferences remain. This is another myth. And I've said it many times, but I just repeat the same things and it's fine. But it's the Ajah saying, no, I still have a favorite ice cream. Like, I'm not going into the ice cream shop going, hey man, I'm enlightened. Just throw anything on a cone. No, he likes chocolate. That's what he likes. So the preferences remain, but they're not believed as like essential to the image. Essential to the me, man. This is what I do. This is how I am. There were years. I was a yogi. My sister is an advanced, masterful yoga teacher. I was a yogi. I couldn't touch asana with a 10-foot pole. I would touch asana and the pain and agony in the nervous system was like, how's it working for you? A lot of stuff has to go. I mean, that's a mundane example, but on deeper levels, I'm a healer. I'm a hospice nurse. I'm a mom. Toughest one. Toughest one. You see how there isn't freedom for the response of immediacy when it's fettered by the historic history. It's no failure. It's not a bad. We're not against it. We're not going to strive to be something different. We're going to practice, I hope. I mean, all of this has to be grounded in something other than just abstract languaging and conceptual understanding. It has to be grounded in, hopefully, some form of quietness every day, or inquiry or contemplation. You might say prayer, and I don't mean petitioning God, because we understand, right? We have to change this mind, not God's mind. We can't change God's mind. That's not a thing. This is what we've got to work with. So we're not petitioning, we're becoming available to the true nature of who we are beyond self-consciousness. What we are. What we are. And it's beginning to demonstrate here in what the mind, the conditioned mind and heart would be called miraculous ways. So this is where like the miracles of Christ come in, but it's what Dr. Hawkins always said, and I didn't fully understand it, but it glimmered in my pantry. Like, I stored it. That you change the world by what you've become, which is your true nature, yourself, the self, not by what you do. And that miracles are just the mind's misunderstanding of what reality actually is. And this is, I can directly speak about it now. I mean, it was always kind of like, wow, this is where we're going, but I couldn't really directly speak about that particular part. I mean, I would see the examples like Dr. Hugh Lin in the mental hospital in Hawaii, and all the great examples of all of this stuff, Mother Teresa needing to be somewhere, so she happened to be in the Middle East, even though they said, no, she can't be. I mean, all this stuff. But now I can speak about it directly. But the emptiness, empty compassion, not as someone being compassionate, not as someone saving the world, not as someone behaving the best they can behave, not as someone adopting higher standards, emptiness. An uncovered, there's not even a window between the sun and this. I mean, I used to say that when the whole cranial nerve thing was happening. I didn't know all these words about enlightenment, and I just didn't know any of this language, none. Sharon and Mary remember. I knew the side of my head had been blown off and that I had flown into the sun. That's what I kept saying, and I'm like, don't know what it means, don't know how I got there. But no separation, none. You can't find it. It doesn't exist. What to do? Do people need another break before I take some inquiries, questions? You do? Okay, there's yeses and there's nos. This is the problem with throwing out that question. How about people who need a break, just go take a quick one. Go take the break, come right back, and I'll just talk for a little bit more for the people who are still sitting here. And then come right back, and then we'll do questions. I'll read something that has meant a lot to me. And it just was such a real and personable example, rather than kind of high and lofty and whatever, of what I'm speaking about. The raw sensation of it, the lived sensation of it. It's a story about a woman named Taijitsu, who was an 18th century nun who was a head of a Soto Zen temple during a time of real strict prohibitions on women in the social network and political life, and less and less freedom for female monastics. And she experienced a lot of vilifying. She was made to be a villain, and probably some torturous experiences and all of that. She had a lot of physical pain because she had some she was born with hips that hurt, and she couldn't walk very well and all of that stuff. So what I'm saying is she had a real life. She was the head of a temple in Soto Zen, and she had a real life. Sometimes the quiet of the temple, which was one of its only virtues, was broken by the noise of guests. Often they were given to complaint, whining about conditions, gossiping about the temples and their struggles, being angry in a world designed to cure anger. She would listen, but as the years passed, she found herself feeling strangely sometimes. The waves of feeling would roll past, and all she could feel was life rising and falling like the deck of a ship, as though her own body were rolling through the waves of time. Arising, abiding, and falling away. This is all the blessed Buddha taught. This is all it is, she thought. This is it. All things arise, abide, and fall away. And we suffer only because we hold on to what we are bound to lose. Pain is a given, but suffering, that we make. This is all he taught, she reminded herself, walking through the rooms of the nunnery as though rowing a raft through the tide, up, down, up again. And then she saw that arising itself arose, abided, and fell away. And abiding arose, abided, and fell away. And that falling away arose, abided, and fell away. She saw that knowing this arose, abided, and fell away. And then she knew there was nothing more than this. No ground, no nothing to lean on, stronger than the cane she held in her hand. Nothing to lean upon at all, and no one leaning. And she opened the clenched fist in her mind, and she let go and fell as love into the midst of everything. Isn't that something? That's it. And she wrote it down so all of us could hear it. Bless her heart. So, what you all got?